My name is Rebecca Andrews. I am the chairperson for the City Council Action Committee for the Health and Family Safety. We're a grassroots organization dedicated to helping the community with major issues facing families and youth today. Issues like drug abuse, human trafficking, and video game addiction. We meet once a month at City Hall, and our meetings are open to the public, so we're all happy to have you if any of you would like to attend. Our event today, the End Game, is our way to reach out to all of you and give you information on these pressing issues. And in our efforts, we have found that there is a connection between human trafficking and digital media, and we're here to share that with you today. Here to speak is Andrew Doan, PhD and MD, along with his wife, Julie Doan, RN. They'll be talking about the psychology of technology and neuroscience effects on the brain. Also, Opal Singleton is here. She works with Million Kids and is a training and outreach coordinator for the County of Riverside and the Sheriff's Department, and the Human Trafficking Task Force. I want to give a special thanks to Passion Life Church. They were here today to provide all the beverages out front and the food. They're a small church located in Marietta, and they're happy to have any of you attend. Also, we'll be mentioning today that we want to acknowledge the Assistant City Manager of the City of Temecula, Greg Butler, is here today. And then anyone interested in community service hours can go see Yvette Martinez outside. She'll be able to help you with filling out all the paperwork for this event. So without any further ado, here's Andrew Doan.
So let me ask a quick question. How many people think technology is really helpful and can be super healthy for the brain? Raise your hand. Excellent. How about bad for the brain? Raise your hand. How about both? Okay, that's good. So that's really what we want to emphasize tonight, that anything that causes neurological change in the brain can be bad and good, and it's really about moderation and how to use it appropriately. And so when we talk about this topic tonight, my wife and I are going to talk less about the addictive nature of technology, because 1 in 11 kids will be addicted to video games with multiple dysfunction in their lives. However, we're going to focus more about how that addictive potential wires that brain for love and trust through the computer and social media, and how that sets up people for grooming and then seduction into human trafficking. And that's how we teamed up with Opal Singleton, the CEO and president of Million Kids. And then she'll take over in the last half hour to discuss case studies and also actual human trafficking scenarios.
So I was shocked when I heard Opal approach us and talk to us about how our issues could be co-occurring. And coincidentally, human trafficking was my heart issue, and I didn't really enjoy speaking about video game addiction because it's kind of an ugly part of our lives. And so we are so blessed to be able to give this information to you, and we really are so intent, and our mission in our lives these days is to keep other kids safe and to keep ours safe as well.
So we're going to start off this talk with the video. So when you watch this video, these are narratives and voices from family members and also gaming addicts. So remember, anything that can have that addictive potential, people will love it and actually start to trust it. So when you listen to this video, keep in mind that these are actual gaming addicts and their families sharing.
All addictions are driven by the desire to escape something.
Just got sucked into this whole world of video games, and it was like part of your life. It was almost the only part of your life.
He started off with just going for an hour, 2 hours, 2 hours turned into 4, 4 turned into 6, 6 turns into 12, and he's now into the snowball effect that he's got to play that game.
I am addicted to the game, but I'm not fully addicted. Like, I can quit whenever I want.
To be on top of a game, you really gotta dedicate your life to the video game itself and not worry about reality.
I don't want to live like this anymore. I really don't.
Head of Addictions Research Now and Human Resilience for the Navy. So I have to have this disclaimer because I'm speaking in my personal capacity as a civilian and as a member of the task force. And also, I have a few disclosure. I'm a founder of Real Battle Ministries, and Julie and I travel around the country to give this type of talk all over the country. And then I'm also an author of Hooked on Games, so that's my financial disclosure. And we're also, I think, giving away a couple of my books tonight. So whoever signed up on the list, we're going to draw a couple names and give those books away. So my background, and Julie and I, we're both medical professionals. I had 6 full-ride scholarships to medical school, but this topic really hits home for me because even though I was fairly successful as a medical scientist, I was addicted to video games and online activities that took over 50 to 100 hours of my time per week for over 10 years. So I literally lost my family on this thing. And so this, I know how someone can fall in love with something. And so my online guild members became more important than my wife and my kid.
And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you're spending 50 to 100 hours online and you're interacting with those people and you're spending maybe an hour at tops with your family members, then who are you going to be drawn to? Who are you going to be connected to? Of course, it's going to be the people online. So if we are going to fall in love with someone, how do we do that? We spend time with them. So if you're thinking about how does this connect, it's that time spent. That's how it connects.
So I think Julie can describe this photo and what happened here.
So this was our crappy apartment in Baltimore when Andy was a medical student. And we had our first son. His name is Nicholas. He's now 17. But when Nick was tiny, Andy wouldn't spend any time with us. And so what I decided to do was I would just throw Nick in his hands so he'd have to hold him. And then I took a picture of him because I knew that we had to somehow try to get him back. And I had no skills with this. And so this is the very beginning, actually. This is the first couple years into Andy's addiction. And it took years and years and years for him to come away from it. So even with the small child in his arms, he still would not become disconnected to the games.
And so, you know, it's sad because when a radio station and a TV station wanted a picture of me for the book, I broke down in tears when I saw this because I realized that at this point in my life, I love that game more than my child. And so now, in retrospect, I'm done with this addiction, and it's been, you know, years and years and years, and now I'm doing the research in it. I realized that the neurochemistry that's involved in what we do online, and that's what I'm going to share with you in the next few slides, actually made me more attached to the thing online. And so I want to emphasize, like I asked at the beginning of the talk, there are many good things to gaming. We know that it increases hand-eye coordination. There is medical research to show that doctors who play video games, their hand-eye coordination is so much better that they are better surgeons in terms of microscopic surgeons and laparoscopic surgeons than their attendings who don't play video games. The University of California Riverside baseball team plays a game for 30 minutes a day. Note that I said 30 minutes a day. The Kaiser Foundation in 2010 shows that the average American child uses a digital screen for entertainment 7 hours, 38 minutes a day. So we are way beyond what's recommended for being healthy, right? So too much of anything can be harmful. So keep in mind that when I talk about this research, this is 30 minutes to an hour of gaming a day. The University of California Riverside baseball team increased their vision from 2020 to 2010. Their batting average all increased across the board. We also know that video games is great to reduce anxiety, depression. We also can enhance memory skills. It's a great learning tool. We also have used it for coping with post-traumatic stress disorders in the military. We use a virtual reality game simulator to help people cope with their stress when they encountered that in warfare. And then we're now using it as pain management. So this is a picture of a burn victim. They wear virtual reality glasses, similar to the Oculus Rift that you've heard that Facebook just acquired. And so they play this game called Snow World. And in this game, they throw snowballs at penguins and other objects in the snow environment. This causes enough visual distraction and also neuroendocrine arousal through the endocrine system, through the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, as well as the endorphin system, that now the burn victim doesn't feel as much pain. So the nurses can change their burn bandages and actually scrub their burns off their arms while they're playing this game. The anesthesiologists at UCSD are doing research, and they showed that an iPad game in a child before surgery is equivalent to 10 milligrams of a sedative called midazolam. So this is why kids get so numb when you put them in front of a computer screen. It's probably causing a painkiller aspect of it, which can lead to addiction, which then can lead to now love and attachment. So this just shows that when they rated this activity, this is the graph at the end. I don't want to talk about everything else, but the graph at the end, they rated this activity of scrubbing their burns as being fun. This is crazy. I mean, burns are very painful.
I'm always the heavy, and I get to always talk about the negatives. Addiction, obviously, you know, we've been there, done that. We know it's addictive. Sleep deprivation. So of course, if you're playing 7.5 hours, that's like the average, right? Then you're not going to be sleeping as much because you have to go to school and maybe eat or something. Gamer rage, when people quit playing games or the game gets disconnected or you lose your internet connection. A lot of kids throw their computer, their controllers through the drywall. They punch holes in the wall. They break furniture. Videos all over YouTube show all of these things. So Andy on the positive side said depression, anxiety, it could use it to treat it. But if you're becoming addicted to it, when you're not playing the game, you don't feel as happy or as high. And so without the game, you may feel down, depressed, low. Failure to achieve potential. That's really basically related to time cost. If you're spending 7 hours on a game, what are you giving up? You're giving up relationships, you're giving up study time, you're giving up hobbies, you're making your life into this game or games or social media or whatever, and you're not actually using the world around you to teach you. And then last, family abuse and extreme violent behaviors. Unfortunately, we've experienced some of these things in our own home. And we've seen, have heard of a lot of different people. There are kids who end up killing their parents because they took the games away from them. So this is serious stuff.
So these are brain scans from an Asian group that actually looked at gaming addicts. And so these are gaming addicts who are exposed to screenplay or actually videos of video game play. And it shows their functional MRI scans. And what it shows is that their prefrontal cortex dopamine, where the red arrows are showing, they light up when they just anticipate the gameplay or watch other people play video games. And these areas of prefrontal dopamine release is similar to that of a drug and alcohol addict. So the dopamine system is the feel-good neurotransmitter. When we do something fun in life, our brain lights up. And so when we're in love, our brain lights up like this too. So recent research shows that if you eat Oreo cookies, your brain lights up like you're on crack cocaine. But it also shows that if you're a mother and you're nursing your child, your brain also lights up like you're on crack cocaine. But that's because our bodies are wired to love things that are important to us for survival, for procreation, for seeking shelter. When it becomes abused, that's when it's a problem. And so that's really the point, is that the social media, the Facebook, the Twitter feeds, they all cause a neuroendocrine arousal of excitement. When we get a buzz on our phone that notifies us that we have a new text that comes, that could be a text from our loved ones, our child, our husband, our spouse. And so we want to check that. And when we get that neuroendocrine arousal, that's the feel good. So your brain is actually lighting up like it's on a stimulant drug. But the problem with technology is that our brains aren't made for rapid stimulation. Usually, before in the past, we would get a letter from our spouse, from the mail, like the U.S. Mail Postal Service. And it would take a while for that mail to get to us, maybe a week or maybe months. But now with rapid feedback, there's no rest period or very minimal rest period between these brain events, these neuroendocrine arousal, and that's what leads to addictive abuse. Because we just are like a rat pushing the button for more pleasure, and if we don't control this in moderation, someone can sit there literally all night long just pushing the button to stimulate their brain.
It's like, you're trying to reload your Twitter feed. So they did a study, and what they did was they showed pictures of people of their phone, and they put them under the MRI scan, and in their brain it lit up like they were married, or like they were in love. And Andy and I totally identified this because I have an iPhone and he has an Android. And so when my phone goes off, I'm like, oh, it's my phone. When his phone goes off, I don't even recognize it as a phone. It doesn't even register to me that, oh, like whose phone, like what's that noise? So, it's really amazing how your brain can just get trained so quickly into falling in love with this thing.
And we know this, right? Because the iPhone 6 just came out. And we walked by the Apple store in the weekend, that place is packed. I mean, companies are making billions of dollars in the fact that our brains are being synced to these devices. And so these MRI scans, when they showed the iPhones or whatever phone it was, their brains lit up like people were on drugs and alcohol too. So it was a very fascinating study.
Okay, so when I think about this falling in love online thing, I think, how lame is this, right? I mean, really? Do you have to fall in love online? Can't you just fall in love with a person? But it's so much easier because, you can pick your avatar and it can have like a really hot body. You can pick the hairstyle and all this kind of stuff and make it look amazing. And then you like create this fantasy of this person that it must be, right? That if you're playing a game and this other person must look like their avatar, well, I don't look like my avatar. So why do I expect them to look like their avatar? And we, tend to fill in the blanks, especially teenage girls. And I know that since I was one a long time ago, we fill in the blanks with our fantasy. So we read into stuff, right? Somebody sends me a text and I would have read into everything that I received if I could text when I was younger. So it's amazing to me that that we can really fall in love with a fantasy, and that can lead us astray, and that we can go all of our time into this fantasy world. And we really have to recognize that it is fantasy, because when reality happens, it never matches up. And so one of the things that we noticed was that when we met one of Andy's guild members when he was playing games, the guy had he was living in his parents' basement. So Andy and I are married and we have a kid, and we go to meet this guy, and he's like living in his parents' basement. He's an adult. He had a mullet, right? I mean, like, the guy was not the sharpest tool in the shed, but Andy had the greatest idea of what this guy was going to look like, and he was nothing like what we thought he was going to be like.
So imagine now taking that element of the addiction part because of that pain-killing aspect of technology, take the neuroendocrine arousal that caused you to fall in love with the technology, and combine this into a digital world. We are now seeing literally people falling in love online. But this is a game called Second Life. This is a virtual wedding where people are spending thousands of dollars and they're getting married with a random person online.
Well, it's not random because they've had this relationship, right?
And so this is Online Gamers Anonymous. So if you or your family members, you know of anybody with problems, I recommend them to go to Online Gamers Anonymous, where it's an online 12-step support group. And so I've been part of this community since 2011, and I moderate the bulletin board, and I reply. And this is a post from a wife who's married to a gaming addict for 19 years. This month, he finally abandoned his wife and his sons for someone he fell in love online. And she does not know and understand why someone would just be throwing everything away for some random person online. So again, take the neuroscience data that I shared with you. The gaming causes a numbing of pain, so therefore, this virtual world is much better than the real world. So kids would rather play games and do college work or spend time with their family because there's life struggles, right? And then they're also falling in love through the technological device, and now it's easy to fall in love with someone who's controlling that avatar or that character on the other side.
And remember what I said about, we fill in the blanks, romanticize things, all that kind of stuff. I mean, really, do you think that this guy, he left his wife of 19 years and 3 children, do you think that maybe perhaps a day into this, he recognized that, this probably isn't the same as what I thought it was going to be? Of course it's not. They are just as gross as the wife is. I mean, really. I mean, and he's just as sick as she is, right? I mean, reality in real life is hard. But when we, fantasize about this thing, when we get into the real world and see, oh, the person on the other side of that PC isn't what I thought they were going to be, well, they're not. Of course they're not. You don't have any facial cues to go off of, right? You can't tell if they're lying to you. You can't tell if they're exaggerating. 90% of our communication skills is non-verbal, right? So if you're online, how are you really going to get the real story? People can lie real easy on text.
That's why I love having my wife here. She's so transparent. So literally, because of my addiction, I don't like to throw myself under the bus, but obviously
I do.
I know. So we've been married for 18 years now, and you can see that we've struggled with this. So we're very transparent. And so I had a restraining order slapped on me because every other word was a profanity. I was verbally abusive. And so that was really a kind of like a nutshell of who I was. But I'm completely different now than I was back then. But the addiction draws really bad behaviors out. And so what Julie's saying is that, yeah, marriage is hard. We've struggled with this over the 18 years that we've been together. And so now, even though I'm in recovery and our family's in recovery, we are still picking up the pieces of that addictive behavior that manifested 10 years ago. And so now we're repairing bad memories that I laid down with her in my early stage of addiction. So my point of saying this and sharing this with you all is this is why we're here to really share this information with you all. Because the first step is to get your kids off the thing and also your spouses off the computer. However, the next step is healing and recovery, which is hard. And that's why we're really passionate about what we do.
So when I turned 40, which was a couple years ago, I was feeling really sad and depressed and whatever. And so I put a post on Facebook, and I said, I'm feeling funky about turning 40 and blah, blah, blah. Well, I had 25 people post on my wall, 20s, 40's the new 20, and you look great, and don't worry, and your life's just starting, and blah, blah, blah. And it really made me feel better. And I was shocked that 25 people who I never talked to, who only see the good pictures of me on Facebook, right? We never post a bad picture. So I was like, oh, this is so nice. These people really love me. But they don't really love me, right? But it did make me feel better. I had that adrenaline, dopamine thing going on that Andy's always talking about. That, maybe it's not so bad.
So keep this in mind, too. You use too much social media, the research shows that you're more depressed afterwards. Because you look at everyone's vacation pictures, everyone's selfies, and you're like, wow, they look great. What's wrong with me? I need to lose more pounds, right? And so this is really a problem because in the past, without social media, it took you literally weeks or months to bump into people you know. But now we see in rapid succession thousands of people we don't even know, and we're comparing our lives to those thousands of vacations. And what I share with my kids is that you don't know, they could have spent all their money on that one fabulous one of their lifetime vacations, and they went into great debt, and now they have great stress afterwards. But all you see is that they had a fun time, and everyone's made to pose to look like they had fun. And so it makes you more depressed when you use too much social media because of that neuroendocrine arousal. So the problem lies in this issue is really digital candy versus digital veggies, okay? So I want you all to break up the material into content. There's good content and there's bad content. The LA School District proved this for us. They purchased iPads, $1 billion worth of iPads, and they gave it to their students for homework. Within 2 weeks, the students jailbroke the iPad devices for pornography and video games. Their brains aren't fully developed. So what I say is that the struggle is when we give this iPad or the digital devices to kids, the first thing they think of is digital candy, even adults. Here I am in med school on full scholarship, and I get the device in my house, I'm thinking games. How can I entertain myself?
He tried to justify it like, we need this like massively huge video card because I have these pictures that I have to look up online for medical school. Not so much. It was for games.
And of course, when the administrator or when the parents give the device to their family members, they're thinking digital veggies, right? Homework and spelling games. But the truth is, we spend very little time on digital veggies, and we spend more time on the digital candy.
Because veggies aren't fun. Candy's fun. So this is our son, Nick, along the top. And these are brain scans, and what they show basically is that your brain doesn't really fully form until you're about 25. And for Andy, it's about 35 or 40. But basically what it shows is that the blue stuff is when where your brain's pretty hard. So as you can tell, you're still... If you want to give somebody something addictive and you give it to them when they're 5, where else are they going to develop in their brain? They're just going to have those areas of their brain being really, really super developed, and then other parts of their brain aren't going to be as developed. So we did this with our son. I saw a picture of him before he was 2, and he had a Game Boy, and he wasn't looking up at the camera to take a picture. And we, unfortunately, gave him games pretty much without restriction for a very, very long time. And we're living the repercussions of that. And, Nick has got things to overcome now, and the brain is sort of plastic. And so you can sort of work really hard and try to strengthen the areas where you're weak. But, we need to spend our childhood learning how to interact with the world, play, rough and tumble, get dirty, things like that, not sit in front of a game. And when we do that, we decrease our ability to make decisions, and the discernment thing is really important. And if you can't discern, then how can you keep yourself safe?
So you can almost draw a line at the age of 12. You see the age 12 on your left-hand side, the brain is nice and fresh and ready to be programmed, and the brain matures from the back to the front. Greater than 12, that's when things become solidified. So you can't teach an old dog what? This is where it comes from. This is a 10-year, decade-long MRI study of multiple brains put together to show the pruning of neuroscience. Is that amazing? And we spend less money and less effort on the left-hand side of that screen. And we expect the child to now grow up and be an adult after we ignored them for the first 12 years of their life. So why are we having drug problems? Why are we having problems with premarital sex in our schools? Why are we having problems with school shootings? So if the child never developed empathy and never developed reflective thought, what's going to stop a child from asking a girl out for the prom, but she's already hooked up in a relationship and she says no, and he takes out a knife and stabs her in the throat and kills her? It happens all the time in the news. So that's what we're worried about, is that the kids are losing their ability to have reflective thought, and compassion, which comes through what? Reading and spending time with people.
I don't even know what to say about this.
Okay, so we fall in love. So remember how we say that we spend the most time with people? We fall in love with that thing or that person. So your heart will follow where you invest your time and money. That's known. So what happens is, if we are spending most of our time on digital devices and social media, guess where the trust and the love will be devoted to? Social media and the device and games. What we want is really for our children and families to devote more time in people and community. This is what we need to really emphasize and change. Otherwise, we're going to have serious problems in the future. And I'll share with you that I just got a case study published on a Google Glass addiction. It'll be published in the Journal of Addictive Behaviors. A U.S. Marine got addicted to Google Glass. Using Google Glass for 18 hours a day, he became so dependent on this Google Glass, which is a wearable computer with a heads-up display, that when he was in rehab, he kept on hitting the side of his face to activate the Google Glass. It was his memory source. It helped him with his memory. It helped him with him breaking the ice when he meet new people, because they approach him and said, hey, that's a cool device. And so he didn't have to really approach people and be an extrovert. He could be his introverted self. But you know what the scary thing that he shared with me at the end was that he wanted to be a transhuman, where he wanted to integrate himself with a computer. Now I did a Google search, and there's a whole group of people with that, basically, I guess, club or desire to be transhuman.
So like the Matrix, only they would want to do it on their own.
Yes. Okay, so why does this matter? We have already went through all this. So just keep in mind that when you fall in love, okay, you develop trust with things and people we spend the most time with. Technology is replacing face-to-face human interaction, which is what we don't need. We need more human interactions because we are human beings. And then kids who overuse technology are more prone to drug addiction, internet gaming addiction, and as well as being pruned for human trafficking. And this is where we're going to introduce Opal. First, before I do that, though, I want to go through the technology guidelines. Now, these are guidelines that were created by several doctors and myself who are in the field of technology addiction. And these are free out there. They're like little plastic cards. So the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no screen time for anybody under the age of 2. Their brains are way too young. They don't need to be exposed to a screen. And you can see that in restaurants, right? You can see little children that are misbehaving. You put them in front of a screen, and they're totally sedated. You take away the device, and they freak out. It's like taking away their painkiller. And you put it back, and they're completely silent again. You can just play that game. Take it away, they freak out, put it back, they are silent. So what you really want their brains to do is practice what? Self-control. If they never learn self-control, how are they going to learn self-control at 5 or 6 or 8? We expect them to have self-control at 8 or 9 when they go to school, but yet when they're young, we just sedate them with something that's convenient for us. So no screen time for anybody who's 2 and under. No gaming until they're 13 or so, because they can't understand all this neuroscience. So it's kind of like giving them beer without the ability to understand why drinking too much beer is bad. And then you introduce the gaming at 13, maybe a half an hour a day to an hour a day. But what I say is no online play whatsoever, because online play is for a mature audience only. And Opal is going to nail this topic. And also follow the guidelines. The age restrictions on the game or the age recommendations are there for a reason. If it says mature only or 17 plus, it means that. Don't give them those games if they're not that age. So I'd like to introduce Opal. Opal, we met because she works with human trafficking. But when she learned about what we were talking about in terms of people falling in love online, she was like, light bulb turned on and says, aha, this is how the grooming occurs. And we're losing our youth by the millions because human traffickers are very smart and they make a ton of money. 5 individuals to a stable, that's what they call them, can generate $900,000 a year in revenue for that pimp or that gang member. Opal.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Andy and Julie. I really appreciate getting an opportunity to work with them. This is the first time we've actually done this particular presentation together, so you're in for a little trial and error here, but that's okay. How many of you have heard about human trafficking here in the U.S.? I think probably by now most of us have. I've been working in human trafficking for many years now. I didn't intend to. Just God had a different plan for me, apparently. I'm retired, and I got involved in human trafficking in 2008 as I started to go to a church that had a mission in Cambodia. And I got very involved with it because it just broke my heart that little kids could get sold into slavery, sex slavery. I retired from a lifetime career of international marketing. I have almost 3 million frequent flyer miles, so I've been very fortunate to see all kinds of life all over the world. In about 2010, I got involved in human trafficking here in the U.S., and I really didn't want to do it, and I had a hard time believing it really exists. Now I do it about 70 hours a week, and I do it 7 days a week, and I know that it exists. And quite frankly, I've seen it kind of evolve and change over time. And I did seek out to meet Dr. Andy Doan and Julie, and the reason for that is that I was speaking at Calvary Chapel in Lake Elsinore, and they mentioned about his book, and I do a massive amount of research in my spare time because I really want to understand all about this subject. And I had come to understand just how much technology and psychology is involved. Somebody there happened to mention Dr. Doan, and I wanted to seek him out because I had seen some cases where kids had been recruited into sex trafficking through video games. I would have traced him and followed him all the way to Delaware, but it turns out he lives right down here in Temecula, so it was an easy thing. I want to share that with you because Cheryl Eckert, are you here, Cheryl, somewhere? I don't see you, but anyway. She was a Me and Kids volunteer that connected us. I think all of those things are important because I can't do this fight alone. Me and Kids leads the way. We can prepare you, we can give you the equipment, we can give you the training, but we need everybody in this room to fight this because this involves protecting our children and our families, and I need you. And you never know what you do that can make a difference in somebody else's life. Just the same as that person mentioned Dr. Doan's name that day in that church. I sought him out. It's made a difference. Just as Cheryl came forward and said, hey, I know Andy, I'll connect you. There's a group right down here of folks, Ken Kidby, you guys want to raise your hand, Jan and Rock Despain. These are all, and Cheryl Eckert, they're all Me and Kids volunteers. They do their own kind of fight against human trafficking, and we're going to need everyone in this room to do it. What I'm going to really talk about is child sex trafficking tonight. There is adult sex trafficking, there's labor trafficking, there's agriculture trafficking, there's all kinds of trafficking here in Riverside County. But my heart and my concern is the fact that many of our kids are being lured in through technology, and that's what our talk tonight is about. Human trafficking is a crime of psychology and technology. I am the Training and Outreach Coordinator for the Riverside County Sheriff Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force. You have an amazing task force of men who are now supported by the Department of Justice and men and women who go after the worst of the worst. People who compromise and sell young people's bodies are the worst of the worst, and you have a great task force. And I am their Training and Outreach Coordinator, and you get stuck with me because they're all undercover. But I'm also allowed to operate my own nonprofit, which is Me and Kids. I would ask you to go on Facebook and look up Me and Kids Riverside and follow us. I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but this is the best education you will get for local cases of human trafficking, and so you can see it right up there. How many of you saw the movie Taken? Yeah, most people think we're talking about kidnapping, but only about 1 or 2% of the time is the person actually kidnapped. Almost always in sex trafficking, they get the victim to raise their hand and say, take me. And more this is happening with technology, and that's why I wanted to explore this with you. I think I have to stand back here, but I like standing up there because I can see you, but this may not work. Think about this. Never before in history have so many predators had so much access to your child. I never really thought that out until I started really understanding what was happening in sex trafficking. I read every sex trafficking case in the nation every day, actually around the world, because I work out of Cambodia. And I also look at every child pornography case in America to understand the psychology. Are you aware that the FBI tells us that 750,000 predators are online at any given time? You take your average 9, 10, 11-year-old and you hand them a smartphone and you say, now don't do anything bad now, you hear. Okay, I say it's kind of like handing a 10-year-old a grenade and say, I'm going to run to the grocery store, so don't pull the pin, okay? Because it is absolute insanity that we're giving kids access to this. I spoke recently, I do a lot of training. I've trained about 35,000 people here in Riverside County, and many of them are government workers. And I trained one DPSS worker who was a very smart lady, a good Christian mother, very conservative. And she told me that she had 11-year-old twin daughters, and they wanted an iPhone. And she said no, but Dad said, you know, everybody else has them. Okay, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, I'm going to monitor, you're not going to, you know, I'm going to look at this, blah, blah, blah. But you know, you get busy, and 4 weeks after, almost 5 weeks after giving her kid that phone, she took a photo one day, and she thought she saw the kid flinch, so she went through the gallery. This 11-year-old in less than a month was sexting to a 35-year-old in Iowa. And that's with all the no, and I said no, okay? We'll clean that up, okay? So, I look at this as the grooming of America, and I think of it in terms of seduction, because we're talking about actually grooming our kids and seducing our kids, and this is how it works. Why is all this happening? Number one is the parent has less and less empowerment at this point. Why is that? Well, they don't have as much time with the kid. Think about it. Your kid, okay, where'd my cell phone go? Can I borrow a cell phone? Okay. Your kid has this with them all the time. And they're poking on it. They go out to dinner and they're poking on it. How many of you go out to dinner with your kids? Everybody's on a text, okay? That happens. And on top of it, there's DVDs, there's school, there's movies, there's peer friends, and there's all these things going on. You only have about 10%, 10 to 15% of the day now to affect your child. So I'm suggesting that you might want a strategy, and you might want to equip yourself to be able to talk to that kid when they're dealing with their technology. Technology is absolutely everywhere, and kids are absolutely addicted to it. I would tell you that everyone in this room has taken this thing to the bathroom with you, okay, at least once, and 20% of you have lost it in the toilet, okay, and I'm one of them, so it's okay. But I'm telling you, you're addicted to them, and they're addicted to them. And that leaves you in a secret world. 70% of the kids will say that the world on the internet is their secret world, and they're not obligated to disclose that. So where's the power of parenting in that? Especially if you're not educated on a lot of these things your kid is doing. I meet parent after parent who says to me, you know, I don't know that stuff. I don't know how they use that. And he's really smart on that, you know, but I said no, and when I say no, mom needs mo. No, but they don't even know what they're saying no to. And so that's some of the challenge on that. Parents often are working, so that leaves kids home alone. When we close this speech, we'll show with you how that plays out in some of these social media sites. Now we have an exposure to the entire world. It's amazing how fast everything is changing. I think back about 18 months ago, you know, our smartphone wasn't as smart 18 months ago. just think where it's going to be in 18 months. This thing is multiplying. The networks are getting absolutely huge, so tens of millions of people are out there now being access to all these games and all these various social medias. You can connect all over the world. And the challenge is many parents are technophobic, and so that gives them a wide berth to be able to experiment. So how does this play out? Some of us sex trafficking. What will happen there is a kid maybe hooks up with somebody, they become friends, it looks like a friend. They begin to groom them, they fall in love, and it doesn't work like you think it works. Oftentimes, the number one thing a predator will look for is your kid sexually active? They'll go on Instagram, and if they're looking cute in a bikini on their vacation, they think, you know, I think this could be one. And they'll go over to Facebook, or they'll go over to other social media sites, and they begin to build a profile of the daughter. You know, I hate my mom's boyfriend. I haven't seen my dad in 3 months. You know what, I'm going to get a job. I need to buy a car. That's all he needs to know to recruit her. He's figured out, number one, she's probably already having sex. 2, she's not close to the man in her life, and she's having trouble with the woman in her life, and she needs money. And it doesn't work like parents think it's going to work. It's one of these, you know, hey, baby, you're cute, you're smart, I'm sorry your mother doesn't love you, and mom's over here, clean up your room, and you're grounded, and he's saying, hey, baby, you're hot. And he tells her everything she wants to hear, and it goes on, and pretty soon she sneaks out, and the rest is history. Her life and your life will be changed forever on that. We have sextortion and revenge porn. I want to teach you a little vocabulary here. I don't know if you all know sextortion, but for the kids that are in class, I'll share with you. Sextortion usually begins, and think about this. In fact, let me share something with you. I probably have too much fun doing this. Bear with me. I can tell you that everybody in this room has done something you're not proud of, okay? Something that was not your finest moment. Every one of you have done it. I said this to 500 people over in LA a while back, and they roared. I don't know what they did. They had the best secrets, and I wanted to say, tell me what you did, okay? But just think about when you did your not-so-fine moment, if everybody carried a camera. Well, that's what's happening to our kids today, because their life becomes a prison, and they get into shame-based behavior, and that changes everything. You go to the wrong party, you get a little drunk, you have a little sex, and it's filmed, and you are sent home with the idea that you will be destroyed. This will go around to your parents and your friends and your school forever if you don't do what they tell you. And so parents are having to start to recognize and deal with shame-based behavior in kids, and that is how sextortion works, is that you are often compromised. The difference between sextortion and revenge porn is you're kind of a volunteer in revenge porn. You know, you have a boyfriend and everybody's hot and heavy and we're all having a great time and it just seems like we're going to be together forever. So I have a great idea, let's film it, okay? Except a month later, she has a new boyfriend and he has a film. And that's called revenge porn if he begins to use that against you. But the end result is shame-based behavior. As you are compromised, you're starting to live in a box of blackmail, and your life literally becomes a tragedy as you begin to try to find your way out of that box. Yeah, peer-to-peer, a lot of the recruitment in human trafficking is based on peers. This is happening a lot in gang trafficking here. We've had several cases in Riverside where gangs actually place their gang girls within the high school for the purpose of recruiting them into gang sex trafficking. And so that is one way that this will happen. And then we have sex and porn addiction. Many of my youth ministers are telling me now that the young men especially, but girls too, are getting addicted to pornography. And part of that is because, you know, sex pornography on the internet isn't real. And so it can go from A to Z. It isn't like two people who are in love and having a relationship. This is animated sex, and so it's okay because it's not sex. It's kind of like oral sex isn't sex, if any of you have ever heard that line. Okay? But it was a changing time in our society when that came out, as we're all kind of coming to grips with it. And that is what's happening in technology, is a lot of this is accepted because it's not real. But you know what? Your 13-year-old brain processes it like it is real. And I would tell you, especially if you're an adult male in the group, I'm not going to pick on you because I really, really value you in the fight here, but I will tell you that if your child sees you looking at pornography, that will forever determine how much their addiction to pornography is as they grow into adulthood. So you might want to think that out. And then we have video game addiction, which I'm going to talk about at the end. So, sex trafficking is the fastest growing crime. Actually, human trafficking is the fastest growing crime in the nation. I find that simply amazing that that's true, that our great nation, the selling of other people's bodies, is the fastest growing crime in our nation. But here we are. It is true. California usually is the #1 state, and literally 3 out of 4 cases last year involved U.S. citizens, that is, our kids, our people. This is really disturbing since we're not very far from San Diego. January 27th of this year, the FBI announced that in San Diego, gangs are making more money selling people than they are selling drugs. Again, that's our kids that's doing that. So this is a crisis situation, in my opinion. And it's not just gangs. It's predators of all kinds. We have pimps and bottom girls. What is that? A pimp, of course, we all know that. We've seen them on TV, but this is your local pimp. We have gangs. I'm very concerned about the gangs because a lot of the border issue that was coming here, where a lot of people were coming across the border, many of those people are MS-13, and they are part of the people that do the sex trafficking. But you also have local pimps, just kind of low-life people who like to recruit and abuse other people, and they use girls to recruit within schools. But we also have social media predators, and we have child porn predators, and I'm going to show you how that works here. So who do they look for? Here's an example. They look for kids that need love, you know, as Andy and Julie said. That's the #1 criteria. We all need to be loved, and they know that you need to be loved. And so that makes it an easy mark. Usually the 2 ways that they recruit is you want to be loved and you need easy money. Now show me anybody in this room who doesn't want to be loved and doesn't need money. So it makes us all vulnerable. And so they prey on young kids especially. The #1 target is usually foster kids. 60% of kids in prostitution come from the foster care system. 80% of homeless kids come from the foster care system. What a great outreach if you're in a local faith-based community, because of the fact that these people have a hole in their heart as big as the sky. You know, the only difference between a foster kid and me, I had somebody who thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they didn't. And so all of a sudden you're 13 and somebody comes along, whether it's on social media or in person, and pats you on the head, and poof, they're gone. So they're really, really scary in that they really want affection, and they're easy to be recruited. And what a great opportunity for a faith-based community to come in and especially help emancipated foster youth. Runaway kids, 1.69 million kids run away a year, and literally 1 out of 3 of them will trade their body for food or sex within the first 48 hours. The reason for that is that little 14-year-old gets off the bus, she's looking around, he recognizes the syndrome right off the bat, come crash with us, we're family. By the way, if you ever see wifey or daddy on your child's phone, keep that phone, go directly to the police or our task force. Nobody needs wifey or daddy in their text on their cell phone unless they're in the life, but they're looking for family. And so it's like back to our runaway girl, come crash with us, we're family, no strings attached. It looks good to her. She goes, joins the commune, and they put her next to a girl who says, I made $500 last night, and so can you. And our little girl is saying, oh my God, I don't want to do this. But it's only one night, and it's $500, and I can make it for a month. But they don't ever tell her she doesn't get the money. In fact, I'd like to buy 1,000 billboards across the United States that say, girls, wake up. The prostitute doesn't get the money. You will have a $500 a night quota. In Riverside, it's $800. You make $500, you get $5 for Del Taco. He gets $495 for a new pair of shoes, and he's out recruiting a new girl and paying off the gangs and the drug cartels. That's how that works. So we have foster kids, pregnant teens, and then kids who look and are active on social media, and that's how they get recruited, is that they're looking on social media for entertainment, and they get taken in. Kids who are lonely, kids who have a lot of time on their hands, kids who want to be models, kids who play on certain websites, which I'm about to show you here. I came to understand when I was doing a training up in Clovis to a church. I ran a 6-hour conference, which I often do for churches. And in this particular church, they were a lot of fun. All the parents sat over here, and all the kids sat over here. So I said to the parents, tell me all the sites you know, websites, social media sites. Well, there's Instagram and Facebook and all the normal. And so I'm talking to the kids, and they go, Omegle, Kik, WeChat, Poof, all of the Snapchat. They just went on and on and on. And all of a sudden, I realized there's something called the E-chasm. In other words, you have all the kids who have never not known the internet. All of our young people here have always known the internet. And then all us old codgers over here who are going, I don't know what they do over there. That's beyond me. And so we have this E-chasm. And what does that do? That gives the kids a whole sense of privacy, living in their own world, because our parents now are not empowered. Well, you're going to learn I am absolutely dedicated. I get up every day of my life with a plan to empower parents and grandparents. If you're walking and talking, you can fight this battle with me. And I welcome you to come and join us. Let's cross that E-chasm and take that privacy out of there and empower, put the power back into parenting. To be powerful, you have to be educated. We're a generation here now of people that sleep with their cell phones. 87% of kids sleep with their cell phone. Why? Just as Andy and Julie said, they want to be loved. It's instant gratification. Somebody might call them. Somebody might give them a pat on the head. Somebody might need their opinion. And so there's that kind of thing going on here. And as I said, 70% of the kids will hide their online behavior. So this one has a lot more wording on it than I usually like, but these are important words to me. 82% of online sex crimes, the predator learns the victim's likes and dislikes through information gathered through social media. Does that give you cold chills? I think that really is important. 65% of sexual predators use the victim's social networking site to gain access to their home, personal or school information, and 26% of online sex offenders use the victim's social networking site to gain information about their whereabouts, and we're going to talk about how that works before it's over. This is a case that broke my heart. I get very involved in a lot of cases. I sat with a lot of parents a lot of times. Sometimes I sat with the kids. In this case, I sat with the father. This is a beautiful young lady. Her name is Melody Black, I believe we put it up there. She's 14, and they're from a family, I won't say where, but it's up in San Bernardino County. They were not wealthy, and they couldn't afford a computer, but everybody had a cell phone but Melody. And so her dad took his spare money and bought her a smartphone so that she could be with the rest of the girls. And as I sat with him one night, he sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because right before his eyes, this young lady went on a website called Kik. And if you don't know Kik, you will by the time I'm through, okay? She got on Kik and was playing it right before him. And she met a 19-year-old named Aubrey, and she got mad at her mom and dad, and she ran off and she met Aubrey, and Aubrey was a pimp. And Aubrey pimped her all over Los Angeles with the Rolling 60s Crips. And it's a really sad case. She was gone 9 weeks. I spent many, many hours looking for this young lady on websites. I don't know if you know, but kids are sold right here in Temecula. While I was looking for Melody, I looked up in Las Vegas. I looked over in Oregon. And we have a girl that is often advertised, sold here in Temecula. Temecula. I call her leaving Temecula soon because we don't know her name, but she was also leaving Sacramento soon and leaving Long Beach soon also while I was looking for Melody Black, because once these kids are in the life, they are sold on the internet right here, even in Temecula. They're on sex sites. They will be set up on sex circuits. They'll be set up in a motel here locally. They'll be advertised out. They text out. They tweet out. They set her up on dates. She doesn't know what her name is. She doesn't know what town she's in. And tomorrow she'll probably be in Riverside or San Bernardino. And her name will not be Kimmy. It'll be Candy or Cookie or Desiree or Nazaree or one of those names that they like to give them. In this case, what happened with Melody is I sat with her father as he cried and said, I'm her dad, and I should have protected her. But I got her that phone, and I didn't know what that phone was all about, and I didn't know what Kik was, and I couldn't protect my little girl. And it was heartbreaking, and it really kind of led me on this journey where I've joined with Andy and with Julie, because I want you all to understand what a Kik is. This is a website, Kik is, that's a social media site. This is, you don't have to know how to use it. This is part of overcoming the e-chasm. Just recognize those logos on there. It's a way that they hook up with strangers and they sext. And you can go on Kik and get your address and put that address on Instagram or Tumblr or a bunch of other sites and meet me on Kik. So you can actually meet up with lots and lots of strangers if you have time in your hands and you're looking to meet with strangers. And so that is how that works. By the way, you don't have to have a cell phone. You can be 10 years old and Dad says you can't have one, but your buddy has a phone, and he can get you a Kik address, and you can advertise to meet with strangers, and he can get you all your messages because you don't need a cell phone to have Kik. The problem with Kik is that it's based in Ontario, Canada, and if you remember, I work for law enforcement, and we need subpoenas, but we cannot get information from Kik. We can from Backpage and from Google and a lot of other sites, but they won't cooperate because they're out of the country. That makes it harder for us to locate kids. And here's a couple of cases. Here's one that's a 4th grade teacher here was grooming a 15-year-old. He had 18 other victims that he was grooming through Kik. He's a teacher. That is not uncommon, by the way. In a reverse sting, they pretended to be not our law enforcement back east, pretended to be a 7th grade girl, and she was bombarded with messages. I just worked with Long Beach Police last Friday. I'm good friends with them because of my relationship with Cambodians out of Long Beach. And they did a reverse sting like this, and they said that within the first 5 minutes, they had completely filled up their day of posting to meet this girl and do reverse stings. That's how easy this kind of thing is. Now, one of you will ask me, well, why don't you do more? We do. We do all we can, but we need all the resources we can. We have a good-sized task force. Right now, we have 91 open cases in Riverside, and we have brought in diplomatic services personnel to be able to help us process cases because we're so backlogged, so we don't have time right now for reverse stings. Snapchat, how many of you know Snapchat? If you don't know, it is supposed to dissolve in 10 seconds or less, so it's a great tool to send your naked photo, right? I mean, I had too much fun at Patriot High the other day. I did 3,100 kids. I trained 3,100 kids in one day, and halfway through I held up the new announcement, Snapchat lied. And it doesn't dissolve in 10 seconds or less. And you could see the wave of looks across 3,100 kids going, oh my heck. It doesn't dissolve. I laid it by the door as they went out. You could tell who was in trouble. They made a big wide curve to see that article. Let me tell you, you could tell who was in trouble. But these kids think nothing of sending their naked photo because they believe that it's done this. This one just scares me to death. This is just coming to California, actually to the United States. How many know WeChat? Do you know it yet? It's coming. It's got 300 million users around the world, 300 million. And what is scary is you can be completely anonymous. You don't have to give them your real name. There are no age requirements. You can be 6 and sign up for WeChat. Okay, and it's a video chat room. I'm gonna give you an example of a video chat room here in a minute called Omegle. But because the internet has become so big and so fast, they can now hook up with strangers. And that's what they do, is people just hook up with strangers to get acquainted. But WeChat has a unique feature that just scares me to death. When I understood this, I wrote to my pastor and said, God help us, because it has something called look around. And so our 14-year-old girl can get mad at mom and go to the mall and hit WeChat and hit the look around button, and it will tell you everybody in about a 5-mile radius that wants to hook up with her. Is that scary? You know, technology sometimes can be scary. So I want to show you this. Andy helped me out here, because when the kids up in Clovis was telling me Omegle, I'm going, what is an Omegle? Well, their byline is literally talk with strangers. And the way this works, how many of you use Skype? Do you know Skype? I use it all the time in Cambodia. Well, it's kind of like Skype, only you can randomly hook up with whoever else is online. So you can see each other, and the fun of it is you don't have a clue who's coming in. And so all these people, all these kids from around the world are hooking up through Omegle. Now I'm going to run you a little video here, and I want you to see, number one, how immature the kids are, number two, how young they are, and number three, the first question I have is, where in the heck are the parents? Okay, let me show it to you.
This is the hangman on Omegle.
Oh. Oh my God, stop, no, turn it off, I'm gonna be my pants.
The pee your pants, boy! No, don't mind me. I'm dead.
Are you alright? Wait, be serious, are you alright? Oh my God. Well, what do?
Life isn't worth ending after all. Oh, this is the beauty of life. I don't need to hang myself. Oh, dance! Woo! Yeah!
What do you think? What do you think? Are their parents home? But just think about this. Literally, talk with strangers. That's how quickly you can now hook up. You can build a relationship, and the kids tell me they meet on Omegle and go over to Kik to hook up and become friends, and then it takes from there. All of these are devices here that can groom and recruit kids. That's why I wanted to get involved, because we see case after case where kids are recruited on Kik or on Omegle, or a lot of times what will also happen here is, especially boys. Now, when we talk about sex trafficking and girls being put into prostitution, it's usually 1 to 5 for girls to guys. It's the girls who actually get put out on the street. But when you start talking about child pornography, it's the guys that are getting heavily violated. And what is happening on this is that there are very large child porn rings. The recent one that they busted was the largest one in the world out of Louisiana, had 27,000 members of it exchanging pictures of child porn. Child pornography is part of human trafficking, because in order to have child pornography, you have to violate the child, and you need a child. And so I want you to know that the police and the FBI are really on to a lot of things, and they're starting to arrest these in massive numbers. I have a book this thick of just the cases this last month. What is happening is Google and Microsoft and Verizon and AOL and all of those have an algorithm now that they can tell if there's a child pornography photo going in, and it goes to National Center for Missing and Exploited. It goes back out to the local police, and the FBI is now arresting them in massive numbers, and that is happening. But the reason I bring this up is that what will happen is that in many of these child porn rings, what will happen is that you have men who are pretending to be young girls, and they talk a guy into sending his naked photo over, thinking he's sending it to a girl. And when he does, that photo goes out on a porn ring to 27,000 people forever. But recently on this one porn ring, what happened is some of the guys had their text number on the back of the photo. They got hundreds of offers from men wanting to have sex with them. And think about this. You give your photo, your naked photo, to somebody, they can start to blackmail you because that photo is out there forever. And finally, in closing, I want to talk a minute about Andy's online gaming, because this is where he and us met, because I began to see these cases. I want you to think a minute. First of all, what I'm talking about is an MMORPG. I didn't think I was old enough to know that word, but I learned it, okay? And so can you. Those are massive multiplayer online role-playing games like World of Warcraft, Call of the Clans, all of those, Call of Duty, Clash of Clans, I can't even think of all of them. But the point of the whole thing is that these games are able to exist. There are 11 million players in World of Warcraft. And I want you to think about that game. You know, if you play it in moderation and you're a mature adult, that's up to you. But just suppose you're 12 years old. The way those games work is you're an avatar. Automatically, that's an alter ego, isn't it? You're starting to live vicariously through this person because you created them. And you get all excited about what's going on with them. And they have to earn certain scores in order to be important. And to do that, they need more equipment, you know, and they get more equipment by getting a higher score or by buying it. So now we have a 12-year-old, his brain isn't developed, he's hormonal, and you've got him in World of Warcraft, and he's shooting a submachine gun. And by the way, the girls who shoot the submachine guns, their outfits are this big, you know, and you go, let's see, in order to succeed, it's got to be more and more violence, and it's a little sex along with the violence, and then you add all of that, and your avatar to be accepted must be accepted by a guild. And so now you have a guild manager who, guess what, is also an avatar. You don't really know who they are. And your entire guild, you don't know who they are. So you have a 12-year-old hormonal, undeveloped brain, violence, sex, a little addiction going on here. They're getting a lot of approval and needing the approval of people that he's never met. You know, why would that scare anybody? Really? It's really scary when you think about how vulnerable these kids are. I want to go on for a second, and then I'm going to come back. The victim here, this is a World of Warcraft player. This guy right here was the guild manager. He had a 16-year-old boy addicted to the game. He needed some money to continue to play, and he sent explicit photos of himself to this guy right here, who then sent it out to 27,000 people. Just think, you talk about shame-based behavior with that young man. He is absolutely trapped because his photo is out there forever, and this guy can always manipulate and blackmail him. Remember revenge porn and sextortion? Well, this is sextortion going on here, and this is literally sex trafficking with bitcoins, because that's what he needed to be able to play this game. I'm coming to the end. I want to share with you two things. One is, as Julie said, one of the things that happens here is redefining a relationship. Let me tell you a true story. I spoke in LA to a very large group of people from Los Angeles County Office of Education. The head lady called me a couple of days after that, and she told me the story of her 18-year-old daughter. Now, this girl is a straight-A student, a 4.0, and this was in May of this year. She only had 6 weeks to graduate from high school. She had a job. Mom and her thought she had a great relationship, but after I talked with them about human trafficking, the mom got to thinking, you know, there's some warning signs here I don't want to look at. It was one of these, you know, she's only 6 weeks from graduating, so shut up and go to school. You know, I don't want to hear this stuff. But she thought, maybe different. She needed to sit down and talk with her, and she did. And when she did, this young lady went to her bedroom, started to cry, and she came back with a passport and an airline ticket to Ireland. And what had happened is for the last 9 months, this young lady had been playing Xbox with a guy who's supposedly 28 and supposedly from Ireland. And Mom knew, but Mom doesn't know about Xbox, and she thought, okay, everything's cool. And this daughter sat down and told her, I quit my job, I've quit my school. This guy talked her into giving up her live stream, quitting her school 6 weeks from graduating with a 4.0, and behind her back had helped her get an airline ticket to Ireland and a passport. That was Friday night, and the ticket was for Sunday morning. And I say to myself, hold it, you know, how could this happen to somebody so smart? Well, Mom said to me, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, yeah, you think I'm a genius? I don't know. What do you do, you know? But I thought for a minute, and I said, let's do this. Put on your best movie star hat, and you say to the girl, you know what? If you love him, I love him. And if you think he's great, our whole family is going to think he's great. So let's cash in your ticket, and we'll get him a ticket and fly him over here so we can all meet him, okay? In the meantime, I want you to sit down with a girl and have her tell you everything she knows about him. And she's a smart girl. She'll figure out real quick. She only knows about 6 things, really. Because what happens in an online relationship is he can be anybody, and she falls in love with a fantasy, just like Julie said. What you don't know when you're on the internet, you make up, and that means you own it. So if Mom had gone in there and said, no, you are not going to Ireland, she would have lost an extension of herself. But by being able to sit down with her and say, well, let's talk about this. What do you know about him? And that's part of a program that we're creating to teach parents and grandparents. We're hoping to call this Not on My Watch, to teach them to cross the e-chasm, to look at a Kik and know what that is, to look at Omegle and understand, to understand that nobody needs WeChat on there, okay? To be able to check a text, and more important, to be able to talk to a child about an online relationship, and also about the idea of being broken and having shame-based relationship. All of this goes on because it's not real. Sex isn't real. Killing isn't real, right? The violence isn't really violence. The sex isn't really sex, except a young person and an adult. We're all alike. You experience it with real life emotions. When somebody says something good about you, even if you don't know them, you get all warm and fuzzy inside, right? You experience this like it's real, and so does your child. And that's true even if they're experiencing shame and sextortion and revenge porn. It's all very real. We want to take this power back. We want to empower parents to be able to cross this e-chasm. That is the work of me and kids. Let us teach you these names. We want to take this across America where we power and empower parents and grandparents. You know, I talked to a Rotary the other day that I swear 90% of them were retired grandparents. You're not dead. You know, put down the golf club, sit down with your grandson and say, show me your avatar. And why did you call him that? And how do you dress him? And how did you get those points? And what do you know about that master that you have? You know, that guild master and the people you play with. You may not know how to play World of Warcraft, but even as a grandpa, you can take the secrecy out of their world by educating yourself. And that is what we're doing. This is how you report human trafficking. We have handouts outside with this name on it. Also, how you can reach me if you have a church where you would like a presentation of all of us together or separately. You can educate yourself. You can get involved. You can put the power back in parenting. And this is the Not on My Watch program that we're developing here. I invite you to join with us. And this is my last and final statement. I know that there's somebody here, a friend of mine, Kelly, is from Calvary Chapel, Murrieta. You never know what you do in your life, how it might change somebody else's life. And that has been so true all my life. I always never close one of these talks without talking about the damaged goods trap. We need to start to understand shame-based behavior. As parents, especially if you're dealing with girls, what will happen is that you think, well, are they on drugs? You know, are they pregnant? We need to say, are they in shame-based behavior? Is something happened to them they can't talk about? Remember, 70% of kids will not talk about the internet. And what happens? If you've ever had a bad sexual encounter, you can't tell your mom. You just kind of lock it up, you know, and you can't reach out. I would tell every parent tonight, when you go home, stop and get a little kid's jigsaw puzzle and take the great big piece out of the middle, one of those big piece puzzles, and sit down with your kid. I don't care if they're 20 years old. That's what the lady did with the girl from Ireland. And sit down with her and say, this is my life without you in it. You're looking for family. You don't have to look on the internet. You don't have to go out there and find all those other people. If anything ever happened to you, my life would be destroyed forever. You're looking for family, I am your family, and we can be strong together. If you see a child, and I can mean even 17-year-olds or childs, okay? 19-year-olds, 24-year-olds can be children with them when you're dealing with shame-based behavior. If you see them hurting, put your arm around them. A lot of times, you know, by the time they're 14, they're wearing a skirt this long and their hair's pink and they're swearing like a sailor, and you want to choke them, okay? But don't. Put your arm around them and say, you know what? I don't know what's going on here, but when you hurt, I hurt. You know, and you may want to talk about it or you may not, but I want you to know no matter what you have done, God is going to forgive you, I am going to forgive you, and we are going to get through this together. We are powerful standing together, and we can do this. I wrote the Damaged Goods Trap on behalf of a man I met at Calvary Chapel, Murrieta 5 years ago that I will never, ever forget, and I never got his name, and I will always regret it. He was a very nice man. He was about 50, and he was humble. And he came up to me that night when I talked, and he said to me, you know, my daughter is a prostitute. I know that. And he said, she's been gone 3 years. And he told me, he said, you know, I'm a truck driver, and every time I pull into a truck stop and some of those girls come and knock on my window trying to sell me sex, he said, I look at every girl I am looking at for my daughter, but I don't want it to be her, he said. But I'll never forget his last line. He said, you know what? I don't care where she's been. I don't care what she's done. I would give everything I own if she would just come home to me. Our kids are precious. We have more temptation, more people that they're exposed to, more people that are forming their morals, their sexuality, their spirituality. It is time for us to take back parenting and grandparenting. It is time for us to understand grace at home and understanding shame-based behavior and being able to bring that together and forgive each other and support each other and understand and open those doors. And that's the work of me and kids. Thank you. So I guess we have, do we have questions and answers? Anybody would like to ask a question? Yes.
Well, personally, one of my concerns is a lot of kids play the game and they're so excited about how creative they are, but that game doesn't translate into real world application or real world skills. There's kids that play hours and hours and hours on that game. And also, when they play online, just like Opal was saying, there is over 700,000 predators are on a line at one time. So where do you think that those predators are hanging out? Are they hanging out with other predators? No, they're hanging out on the games where kids will be, right? And so that's the thing about, like, my kids Emily will never play that game because of that. And, you know, we have to be really savvy and smart about these games. You know, Andy was talking about the recommendation for games. No games until you're 13. You know, screen time should be limited to half an hour a day. So if you want your kid to be creative with those kind of block things, get Legos.
My recommendation actually is a little bit more moderate. I'm a gamer in the family. So what I recommend is that you can control it by 30 minutes a day. That'd be healthy. No online play. And so Minecraft can be played in basically single mode and isolated mode, so you don't have to go online. And actually, University of Iowa researchers have shown that the most important aspect of gaming is actually gaming with your children. So parents need to engage with their children while they play games. But the problem is, in our society, we're so busy because for me, commute 2 hours a day because I drive down to San Diego. So gaming was, for my son, a convenient way for him to be busy and for me to love him because I was the hero giving him the games So he loved me more, or seemingly loved me more as a dad, and then he was busy and occupied, so then when I got home, I could do my own thing without him bothering me. That is where it's dangerous. So if you're playing Minecraft with your kids, great, you're doing a good job. But how many parents actually sit down and actually play Minecraft or any games with their kids? Very few. We actually use it as a babysitter, and that's where it gets dangerous. Does that make sense?
Well, and also they've shown that that game reverts to killing and warfare and destruction. Andy has on one of our slide presentations, we have video of different traps that are created in the game when they're playing in multiplayer mode, where they're trapping other people and killing their other characters and things like that. So a lot of times what happens is it reverts down to the lowest common denominator of warfare and killing and those kinds of things.
So this is actually backed by science too, and there's something called the Coolidge effect. And so since we've mentioned porn, and we're a mixed audience here, but I'll talk about it. So Coolidge effect is when we expose a RAM to a U. If you expose it to the same U, it takes longer and longer for that RAM to do its business, okay? Which makes sense, because you wouldn't want it to mate with the U incessantly. You would overpopulate the territory that the RAM is under control. But however, when you expose that same RAM to different U's, it actually will do its business and reach its, it does complete its business much faster and will do it to exhaustion. The reason why porn is so addictive is that it changes the images. The same images, you develop tolerance. So when you change up the images, you get arousal. And that's why porn is attractive. Video games the same way. So when you play Minecraft, doing the same Minecraft activity gets boring. So what you do is you search YouTube, and then what happens is they war and they kill each other. So now when it was cooperative play becomes boring. So now they play against each other and they kill each other. And then after that gets boring, they build a strip joint within Minecraft. You see? So you're exposing your kids to something of overstimulation if you don't control it 30 minutes to an hour a day. So you search on YouTube, Minecraft penis. Kids are teaching people how to create an ejaculatory penis online. See, so they get bored with just regular Minecraft, so they turn Minecraft into now an ejaculating penis that shoot out sheep as being the ejaculate. Do you see my point? So the Coolidge effect is what makes video games and porn addictive. So when you expose your kids to that, you need to be aware of the science so you understand the human behavior. They're not going to build simple blocks forever because it's boring. They will move to other interesting things, which you will not want them to enter. Does that make sense about video games?
That redefines counting sheep to go to sleep. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Do we have another question? You.
Okay, so neuroendocrine-wise, it's amazing, is that it takes about 30 days for the neuroendocrine system to actually reach homeostasis. So you can't talk to your kid when they're addicted or when they're really in love and attached. So the neuroendocrine system is just literally, you're talking to hormones. So you're talking to the base brain. So what we do in addictions is actually we unplug them. So you'll see this withdrawal period. However, if your child is violent, if your child is abusive, if your child tends to want to hurt you or others, you need professional help. Because there are cases now in Japan called the hikikomori, where there's over 3 million young people addicted to technology, and they're in their rooms 24/7. Their parents try to engage them out to stop them using the porn and video games. They're literally abusing their parents. So you need professional help if that's the case. So I don't recommend, pulling that away. So how I recommend doing is that sometimes weaning them off, like people addicted to cigarettes, they go from 1 pack to like maybe half a pack to and then finally a quarter pack and then a few cigarettes and then off, right? So maybe wean them off to the point where they're playing maybe half an hour, let's say they're playing 6 hours a day. Cut it back by half, 3 hours a day for a month, and then go down to an hour and a half, and then an hour for a month, and then finally go cold turkey and then take it completely away. We did that to our son. So our son was addicted at 14. We weaned him off, but the problem was he only thought about gaming Monday through Friday. So he watched YouTube videos on Call of Duty strategy, and then when Friday came, that's all he wanted to do all weekend. And then I catch him at 3 o'clock in the morning sneaking in extra game time. That's when I knew there was a problem. we finally took it away, and then he found his love in running, and then he'd run long distances now, and so he doesn't play games anymore, or tries not to. Sometimes he, relapses, but in general, he doesn't touch that. He found his love in running, and now he's being recruited by Division I schools for running scholarships because he found his passion. And so that's how I'd recommend, is that, maybe weaning him off and then cut him off.
One of the things that that Nick said to me as he's been away from the video games is that he thanked me for taking them away from him because he couldn't stop on his own. And now he has new life, and he has a future and hope for something other than what he was doing. A lot of the video game players who are addicted say they don't even enjoy the game anymore. They don't know why they're playing. They're just playing. And part of that, I think, also is, lack of skills, right? They don't have any other interests because they've never developed any. So I think, if you choose to wean your child off, getting them involved in something else while you're weaning them off, like community service or whatever, will help ease the transition. But for me, because I'm the one that's home, he's commuting 2 hours, it became so burdensome to manage him while we were weaning him off. I was ready to kill somebody because it was really difficult because it's all he would talk about. So it became a point where I was like, I'm done. We're done. This is it. It's hard enough to be a parent in this world anyway. So then you add that on top of it, it's just unmanageable. So I would highly suggest try to wean him off if you can. But if you can't, then, assess whether he's dangerous or not, and then cut him off and get him into something else.
Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, actually, there's, Andy can probably address this even more than me, but there are apps you can buy where you can actually see exactly what your child is doing. Some of it you can limit and like that. But, obviously Google isn't interested in limiting their business. And so they don't see that as their responsibility to do that. Now, having said that, Google has come to the front line on things like child porn. I mean, we're seeing a massive amount of response right now on child porn, because if it's out there on the internet, it's starting to be identified because of this kind of coalition work between Google and Microsoft and like that, where we can find it, nail it down, find out who did it, get them arrested, and then be able to encode the photo and see everywhere that it goes. So they are participating, but I don't ever see them limiting. I mean, there are apps out there that you can limit and monitor, but I don't see themselves putting themselves out of business. Do you?
No. So the question is, are the technology devices manufacturers putting limits on, or limit monitors on their devices? No, but their third parties are. And actually, if you go out to the table, there's Covenant Eyes, which I recommend. It helps to monitor the internet. It actually can turn off the internet at night. It actually can set age-appropriate websites for your family to surf on, and also on the iPhone and as well as the Android devices. Here's the interesting fact. If you search Google for Waldorf schools technology executives, the technology executives behind the devices are sending their kids to technology-free schools until they're 18. And actually, recently, there is an interview that was published about Apple, Steve Jobs, who passed away, but he did not let his daughter have the iPad because it was too much to manage in their family. So these technology executives have seen the problems that developed in their own families, and so they chose to go technology-free to let their children develop in technology-free environments. So the key to making money, though, in the business world is to get people to love their phones and devices. So I don't see them doing anything except saying that it's all your responsibilities to moderate. You've seen that, right? With fast food, right? Why am I supposed to stop you from eating French fries? You need to stop eating French fries. And so they publish the data and they say, this is what the health issues are in French fries, but we're not going to stop you buying the French fries. And that's why we're here, to educate you on the science part of it, to explain why the brain likes things the way it likes, for that you can make sound educational choices for your family. All right, we'll be around too afterwards if you have personal questions.
Books. So we have 3 books, and we just randomly picked some people. So Sarah Perez, we have a free book for you. And Ken and Connie Murphy, we have a free book for you. And Brad Fox. The books are, it's Andy's book, Hooked on Games, and it's for sale on Amazon if you didn't win it. And
thank you very much. And we'll be around too, so you can come up and talk.